Hi everyone. Let's start paper 2 of O-level chemistry, May-June 2024, variance 21. Choose from the following substances to answer the question. Each substance can be used once, more than once, or not at all. State which substance is a catalyst in the Haber's process. Obviously, iron. Next is has a giant covalent structure. So giant covalent structure silicon 4 oxide का होता है, which is also called silicon dioxide. तो हम silicon 4 oxide लिखेंगे because examiner ने हमें silicon 4 oxide लिख के दिया. Changes from blue solid to white solid when heated. Obviously water. Is there water here? No. No. It must be hydrated copper 2 sulfate then. Because blue solid belongs to hydrated copper 2 sulfate. When you heat it, water of crystallization is lost, and as a result, you will get white solid. So hydrated copper 2 sulfate removes taste and odor during the treatment of the domestic water supply. To remove taste and odor, I'm going to use charcoal. Charcoal is basically carbon, so I'm going to use carbon here. Next is has the empirical formula CH2O. Empirical formula is CH2O. So technically, methanoic acid has a formula of CO2H. Methanol has a formula of CH3OH. And glucose has a formula of C6H12O6. So if I'll divide by 6 to get the simplest ratio, I'll get CH2O, which means glucose would be the right answer for this question. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Calcium carbide CaCe2 reacts with water to form flammable gas ethyne C2H2 and calcium hydroxide. Construct the simple equation for this reaction. So technically, calcium carbide is solid reacting with water, which is liquid at RTP, converting into a gas, which is C2H2 ethyne and calcium hydroxide. And calcium hydroxide is basically aqueous. So how many hydrogen atoms we have? 2 plus 2, 4 hydrogen atoms. To balance hydrogen, I will put 2 here. So that's the equation balanced. Calcium carbide is ionic. Deduce the formula of the carbidine. Calcium carbide is CaC2. Obviously, calcium has a 2 plus charge. Obviously, this carbide ion has a 2 negative charge, which is why when these charges cancel out with each other, you will get CaC2 as the formula, okay? So that means carbide ion has a formula of C2, 2 minus. Figure 2.1 shows the displayed formula of ethyne. Ethyne is an unsaturated hydrocarbon because it contains triple bond between the carbon atom. Ethyne is an unsaturated hydrocarbon. What is hydrocarbon? Compounds consist of carbon and hydrogen only are hydrocarbons. Because ethyne consists of only carbon and hydrogen. Suggest why ethyne is unsaturated? Because triple bond is present between carbon atoms. Aqueous bromine reacts with ethyne. Predict the color change that happens during this reaction. So since aqueous bromine has a red-brown color, also called orange color, so when it is involved in the reaction with ethyne, obviously that color becomes colorless. So in other words, I can say orange to colorless. Draw dot and cross diagram to show the electronic configuration of a molecule of ethyne. Show outer electron shells only. I did that in the class in chemical bonding a chapter. Since ethyne has a formula, right? So we need to draw dot and cross diagram with respect to this structure. So we have carbon atom here. We have another carbon atom here. And we have hydrogen atom here. We have another hydrogen atom here. This is carbon atom. This is also carbon atom. This is hydrogen. And this is hydrogen. Now this carbon has 4 valence electrons. 1, 2, 3. This one is 4. Now this carbon has 4 valence electrons. 1, 2, 3. And this one is 4. And obviously hydrogen के जो electron है वो cross से represent हो जाएंगे. Okay. So basically 3 electrons of each element share together का concept मैंने apply किया यहाँ पर. Because triple bond exists between the carbon atom. Okay. आप इसमें एक चीज और भी कर सकते हैं, पता है क्या? देखो मैं आपको ट्रिक सिखाता हूँ. वो गलत नहीं है, वो बिल्कुल सही है, बट आप इसमें एक काम और भी कर सकते हैं. लेट्स सपोज कार्बन के इलेक्ट्रॉन इज रिप्रेजेंटेड बाय क्रॉस. The other carbon atom has also cross. 1, 2, 3, 4. And hydrogen के electron is represented by dot. You can write in that way also. Okay. Both are acceptable. The equation for the complete combustion of ethyne is shown. So on complete combustion, it is carbon dioxide and water is given out. The forward reaction is exothermic. Use ideas about breaking and bond making. Why this reaction is exothermic? Total energy absorbed in bond breaking is low. Total energy absorbed in bond making is high. So more energy is released than absorbed. Complete the reaction pathway diagram for the complete combustion of ethyne. Labeled reactant products, enthalpy change and activation energy. So किसी भी exothermic reaction के लिए energy of reactant is greater while energy of product is lower. Let me label the reactants and products with respect to this equation. So this is C2H2 plus 5O2 converting into 4CO2 plus 4H2O. Oh, 2H2O. Okay, so ये हमारे reactant products हो गए. Now we need to mention the energy barrier like this. This is going to be the activation energy. EA से represent करेंगे. And we need to mention the enthalpy change arrow. For all exothermic reaction, delta H arrow needs to be downwards. And this is your delta H, and its value needs to be negative. Okay. So that's the end of this question. Let's move on to the next one. Question number 3. Aqueous ammonium nitrite. Ammonium nitrite has a formula of NH4NO2. Decomposes when heated from nitrogen to form nitrogen. Okay. 25 cm cube sample of 0.1 mole per dm cube ammonium nitrite is decomposed completely. Calculate the volume of nitrogen formed at room temperature. Answer needs to be given in two significant figures, right? So I know the concentration and I know the volumes, which means I can find the moles of ammonium nitrite. So in the first step, 1000 cm cube of ammonium nitrite gives 0.133 moles. So if we have 25.0 cm cube of ammonium nitrite, the moles is going to be 0.133, 25 divided by 1000. So 3.325 into 10 to the power minus 3 moles. According to the equation, we have ammonium nitrite and nitrogen in 1:1 ratio. So if we have calculated 3.325 into 10 to the power minus 3, so I expect we have the same moles of nitrogen also. Three point three two five into 10 to the power minus 3 moles. Now in the last part, we need to find the volume of nitrogen gas, and answer has to be in dm cube, which means I need to multiply the moles by molar volume. So volume of nitrogen 3.325 into 10 to the power minus 3 into 24. So into 24, so it's going to be 0.0798. Okay. So answer needs to be given in two significant figures. So if answer is given in two significant figures, obviously we need to write 0.0. Hold on. 798 dm cube. So in two sig fig, it has to be 0.080 dm cube. All right. Describe and explain the effect of increasing temperature on the rate of this reaction. As temperature increases, kinetic energy increases, effective collision in a unit time increases, and obviously rate of reaction increases. So as temperature increases, kinetic energy increases. molecules collide together more frequently, if molecules collide together more frequently, then due to increase in collision frequency, rate of reaction increases. Describe and explain the effect of decreasing the concentration of ammonium nitrite on the rate of this reaction. As we decrease the concentration of ammonium nitrite, so ammonium nitrite molecules becomes less crowded, and obviously effective collision in a unit time decreases, and so rate of reaction decreases. As concentration of ammonium nitrite decreases, molecules becomes less crowded, so collision frequency decreases, and when collision frequency decreases, rate of reaction decreases. One way to measure the pH of aqueous ammonium nitrite is to use pH meter. Describe one other way to measure the pH of aqueous ammonium nitrite. Use universal indicator. And then we need to match the color, or we need to compare the color with a pH color chart. Okay. Question number 4. Potassium iodide is ionic solid. If it is ionic solid, which means it has high melting and boiling point because it exhibits giant crystal lattice structure with a strong ionic bonding. So consists of potassium ion and iodide ions. Explain why potassium iodide has a high melting point. That was the expected question. It has a giant ionic lattice, strong electrostatic attraction between cation and anion, between potassium ion and iodide ion. So more energy is needed to overcome strong forces or strong attraction. Describe how potassium atoms and iodine molecules react to form potassium ions and iodide ions. Use idea about electron transfer. Potassium. Okay. First of all, let's make the equation. This is potassium ion. This is iodide ion. Converting into potassium iodide. Since potassium is found in group 1 of the periodic table, so it loses 1 electron due to oxidation from its valence shell. Potassium loses 1 electron from its valence shell through oxidation. To get the noble gas stable configuration. Okay. An examiner is looking for the iodine molecule, right? So potassium atom and iodine molecule, these needs to be reacted together. So this is iodine molecule, will gain 2 electron and convert it into iodide atoms. So 1 potassium loses 1 electron, so 2 potassium loses 2 electrons because iodine molecule needs to get 2 electrons. All right. So ये 2 electrons उसी वक्त मिलेंगे जब आप 2 potassium ions use करेंगे. Okay. So technically potassium loses 1 electron from its valence shell through oxidation state to get the noble state configuration. So हम यहाँ लिखेंगे iodine molecule gains 2 electron through reduction to give iodide ions. So each potassium ion, in fact, each potassium atom okay, each नहीं, each तो मैंने लिख दिया है, आप इसको इस तरह से लिख लीजिए कि 2 potassium atom loses 2 electron during the reaction. Okay. Predict the products at each electrode during the electrolysis of concentrated aqueous potassium iodide. Since it is a concentrated condition, so iodide ion will discharge first from the electrolyte, and obviously you will get iodine at anode and hydrogen gas discharge at cathode because it is closer to the line of discharge, despite the fact that potassium ion has a high concentration, right? Aqueous potassium iodide reacts with aqueous potassium magnate 7. State the color changes that happens during this reaction. By the way, potassium iodide is basically a reducing agent. And potassium magnate 7 is basically an oxidizing agent. So examiner is looking for the color changes, right? So potassium magnate 7 has a purple color. When it will involve in the reaction with potassium iodide, obviously it's going to be colorless. But since iodine is formed and iodine has a brown solution, so final observation would be purple to brown. Because MnO4 negative ions oxidizes iodide ions into iodine, and iodine has a brown solution. All right. The ionic equation for the reaction between aqueous potassium iodide and aqueous chlorine is shown. We have done this equation in class, explained in terms of electron why this reaction involves both oxidation and reduction. So chlorine is converted into chloride, which means during the reaction, chlorine molecule will gain electron, and therefore its oxidation state decreases, whereas iodide to iodine is basically an oxidation because it loses electron, which means during the reaction oxidation state increases. All right, so we need to give the answer in terms of electron, not in terms of oxidation state. So that's going to be very, very easy. Chlorine molecule will gain electron and convert it into chloridine, while iodide ions are oxidized into iodine due to the loss of electron. Okay. So technically, what I'm saying is that this chlorine is an oxidizing agent. So during the reaction, it will gain electron. And you know that iodide ion is a reducing agent. So during the reaction, it loses electron. Okay. Question number 5. When a sample of zinc sulfate is heated in a closed system, equilibrium mixture is formed. The forward reaction is endothermic. If forward reaction is endothermic, the delta H would be positive. Now, examiner is looking for the temperature of the closed system is increases. The pressure is kept constant. So I'm going to use Charles' law here, because when temperature increases, volume also increases, which means temperature and volume both are directly proportional to each other because pressure is constant. Okay. So I'm going to apply Charles' law, which is also called volume temperature relationship. So as you increase the temperature, obviously volume increases. And since reaction is endothermic, so position of equilibrium favors towards right hand side, that is towards the product side. Okay, so examiner is looking for the position of equilibrium also. Whew. So so examiner is looking specifically for the position of equilibrium. So what we can write here is as forward reaction is endothermic, so if temperature increases, equilibrium favors towards product side. Okay. just to neutralize the absorption of energy, because when your temperature increases, energy is absorbed. So we need to neutralize that absorption of energy, the concept, okay? And to neutralize that, we need to move position of equilibrium favors towards right hand side. Pressure of the closed system is decreased and the temperature is kept constant. So obviously we can apply Boyle's law, which is also called pressure volume relationship. Since examiner is looking for the position of equilibrium, then it's going to be most easier one. So for pressure, reactants and products has to be in the gaseous state. So I'm going to ignore zinc sulfide because it is solid. I'm going to ignore zinc oxide, but it is also solid. But I'm not going to ignore sulfur dioxide because it is a gas. So on the product side, we have total 1 mole. On the reactant side, we have 0 mole. An examiner basically decreases the pressure. So as we decrease the pressure, equilibrium favors in that direction. जहां number of moles जो हैं वो ज़्यादा होते हैं, which means equilibrium favors towards right hand side, that is towards the product side. As pressure is decreased, position of equilibrium favors towards product side because of more number of moles. Okay, look, if we have more number of moles, then it means we have more volume. So when you decrease the pressure, volume technically increases, which is why we can say I can apply the Boyle's law here. Calculate the maximum mass of zinc oxide that can be made from 25.5 gram of zinc sulfide. So first of all, take out the MR of zinc sulfide. Zinc sulfide is basically 65 plus 32 plus 16 times 3. So technically the MR of zinc sulfide is 145. Okay, since we know the mass of zinc sulfide, I can find the moles. So moles of zinc sulfide is 25.5 divided by 145. So I'll get what? 25.5 divided by 145. So I'll get 0.01758. Moles. Now, according to the equation, both zinc sulfide and zinc oxide has 1:1 ratio. So अगर हमारे पास 0.01758 मोल्स हैं, तो बताइए मोल्स ऑफ जिंक ऑक्साइड भी सेम हो जाएंगे 0.01758. To get the mass of zinc oxide, I need the MR of zinc oxide. So let's find out first MR of zinc oxide, which is 65 plus 16. So I think it's going to be 81. Now I need to find the mass of zinc oxide. So I'm going to multiply moles with MR, multiply 0.01758. So it's going to be 1.423 gram All right. Let's move on to the next part of the question. Okay, hold on. Let me check my calculation. 25.5 divided by 145. Oh, my bad. That was the grave mistake I've done. 0.1758. This is 0.1758. Guys, मुझसे गलती हो सकती है, आप लोगों से भी हो सकती है. Make sure कि बहुत समझदारी से कैलकुलेशन करें. That's the easiest calculation, but मैंने गलत रीड किया और गलत लिखा उसको, ठीक है? So you have to be very, very careful. Into 81 is going to be 14.24. 14.24. 14.24. हमेशा डबल चेक कीजिए अपनी कैलकुलेशन को. ऑल राइट, डबल चेक करेंगे तो ज्यादा बेहतर होगा. मैं भी आगे चला जाता बिकॉज मुझे लगा कि ठीक होगी कैलकुलेशन, बट मैंने डबल चेक किया तो देखिए मुझे ये एरर यहाँ पर मिला और मैंने उस एरर की बेस पे सारी चीजें ठीक की. सो हमेशा कैलकुलेशन को 2 टाइम्स चेक किया कीजिए, ठीक है, कैलकुलेशन पे, कैलकुलेटर पे. Next is zinc oxide reacts with both aqueous sodium hydroxide and dilute hydrochloric acid, but sulfur dioxide only reacts with aqueous sodium hydroxide. Explain why. Because zinc oxide is an amphoteric oxide, can react both with an acid and with an alkali. Because zinc oxide is an amphoteric oxide, can react with both NaOH and HCl, whereas sulfur dioxide is an acidic gas, so it can only react with an alkali. Acidic gas or acidic oxide is the same thing. So can only react with NaOH. Solid zinc sulfide reacts with dilute nitric acid. So first of all, zinc sulfide is ZnSO3 and its medium is solid. Reacting with nitric acid. So nitric acid is basically an acid and all acid exists in aqueous state. When they will react together, obviously sulfur dioxide gas is formed. Zinc and nitrate combine together to give zinc nitrate salt is formed. And obviously this hydrogen react with oxygen to give water is formed. And this water has a colorless liquid, okay? So this shows water. This shows zinc nitrate, which is your salt. So I need to balance the equation. Obviously we have 2 nitrate here, put 2 here. I think it's balanced now. 2 hydrogen, 3 to the 6 and 1, 7, 7 to 9, 2 to the 6 plus 3, 9. It's a balanced chemical equation, guys. Sulfur dioxide is a gas. Zinc nitrate is aqueous because all nitrates are soluble. Water is a liquid. So that's the end of this equation because examiner is looking for the symbol equation, okay? Next question. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas that linked in to the increase in the global warming. Describe one adverse effect of increasing global warming. It changes climate. or increases the temperature of the Earth's surface. So increases the temperature of the Earth's surface, which is why climate changes. Okay, you can write the whole statement. Describe how carbon dioxide causes global warming. That's easy. We have discussed this in class. Carbon dioxide absorbs infrared energy coming from sunlight so this makes carbon dioxide molecules becomes excited, due to which they will lose infrared radiations in the form of heat in the lower atmosphere. Okay. Hence, rises the temperature of Earth's surface. Okay, that's what we have done in the class. So उसी context में मैंने बात की. Photosynthesis is basically an endothermic reaction in which glucose will turn to carbon dioxide, removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So photosynthesis is basically the formation of food, is basically the formation of glucose, all right? So, which is why it can remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So what is the word equation for photosynthesis? Oh, that's easy. Carbon dioxide plus water will turn to glucose and oxygen. Okay. Describe the conditions needed for photosynthesis. Sunlight and chlorophyll. Explain one strategy to reduce global warming causes by carbon dioxide. Less dependence on fossil fuels. Use renewable source of energy. Okay. Do plantation, and plantation make a difference. Chlorine is a gas at room temperature. Iodine is a solid at room temperature. A sample of chlorine has a volume of 250 cm3 at room temperature. The pressure of the sample is increased at room temperature. Describe and explain in terms of chemical particle theory what happens to the volume of the sample. Obviously, I am gonna apply pressure volume relationship, which is also called Boyle's law. So examiner is basically increasing the pressure. So when pressure increase according to this expression, volume decrease. So volume decreases from 240 cm3. All right. How come? Let's see. As pressure increases, gaseous molecules are compressed. Molecules comes close together. Space between the molecules decreases. So if the space between the molecule decreases, obviously volume also decreases. Okay. Next, when heated at atmospheric pressure, iodine changes directly into gas. When iodine is a solid, it changes directly into gas. Then this process is called sublimation. Okay. Describe the changes in particle separation, arrangement, and motion during this change. Separation. In solid, they are closely packed, but in gas, obviously, they are very far away from each other. Far away from each other. In gaseous state. Arrangement from regular to irregular arrangement. Highly irregular arrangement. In solid, they have a vibratory motion. But in gas, they will turn to random motion. That is, they can slide over each other. Okay. At the same temperature and pressure, the rate of diffusion of chlorine gas is greater than that of iodine gas. Explain why. The rate of diffusion depends on temperature and molecular mass. Since temperature and pressure both are same, which means we need to check the molecular mass of both the gases. The molecular mass of chlorine is 71. The molecular mass of iodine is, I think, 128 into 2, 256. So obviously chlorine has a smaller relative molecular mass, which is why it has higher rate of diffusion. So molecules of chlorine will move faster from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Okay. So simple, we can write chlorine has a smaller molecular mass than iodine. So it will move faster. The symbol of iodine is shown. Okay. Complete the table. We have an atomic number of 53, which means we have 53 protons. Obviously, we need 53 electrons, but the negative charge means it will absorb 1 electron in its valence shell. The electron is going to be 54. Now, what we can do is, in order to calculate the neutrons, we need to subtract nucleon number from proton number, and it's going to be how much? It's going to be 53, 73, I believe. Oops. Neutron would be 73 and electron is going to be 54. Okay. Next question, question number 8. The flow diagram showing information about some organic chemical reactions. This is butane 1-ol. So basically, ester is formed when treated with ethanoic acid. So OH from here, NH from here will turn to water, and as a result, you will get acid. Oh, sorry, ester. So first, I need to write the part of the ester, part of the acid structure, and then later we can write the part of alcohol structure. CH2, 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 CH3. Okay. There is a slight difference from this question and the question which we have discussed in variance 22. That was my bad. That was butane 2-ol, and this one is propane 1-ol. Okay, or 1-propanol. You can write that. So जब भी हम स्ट्रक्चर लिखते हैं एक्स्टर का, पहले एसिड का पार्ट, बाद में अल्कोहल का पार्ट आता है. So that's our B. ये हमारा B हो गया. KMnO4 is converted into propanoic acid. Propanoic acid has a formula of CH3, CH2, COOH. When propanoic acid is treated with magnesium carbonate, magnesium propanoate is formed. Magnesium propanoate has a formula of CH3, CH2, COO taken 2, and then Mg. That's my D. And E is basically carbon dioxide and obviously water. When propanoic acid is treated with magnesium, obviously magnesium propanoate is formed and hydrogen gas. So D is basically magnesium propanoate. And F is hydrogen gas. So when we use ethanol and propanoic acid, we'll get ester. पहले acid का part लिखते हैं. So this is CH3, CH2. My bad. Hold on. Okay, I was right. CH2CO and then ethanol. Now we need to attach the alcohol part, which is CH2 and then CH3. Okay, that's my ester G. Name compound A. Its name is propane 1-ol or 1-propanol. Draw the displaced formula of the other structural isomer of C3H8O, that is an alcohol. So examiner is looking for the isomer of this, and I have told you in the class that propane 2-ol is basically the isomer of propane 1-ol. So what I'm doing is I'll shift this OH onto this carbon atom, whereas H will move onto this carbon. So after this such rearrangement, I'll get propane 2-ol, and its displayed structure has to be written like this. Okay. Draw the displayed formulae of ester B. This is your ester B. We need to draw the structure. I can. CH3, C double bond oxygen, single bond oxygen. This is the acid part. Let me write the alcohol part. Alcohol is propanol. So I'm going to write 3 carbon atoms here. Whew. Okay. Draw the structural formula of the propanoic acid. Structural formula of propanoic acid is CH3, CH2, COH. आप इस तरह से भी लिख सकते हैं CH3, CH2, COH. Okay. State the name and formula of compound D. Where is compound D? Compound D is magnesium propanoate. So name is magnesium propanoate and formula is CH3, CH2, COO, taken 2, and then Mg. State the name of gas E and gas F. What is gas E? Gas E is carbon dioxide and gas F is hydrogen. Name of ester G. नाम देने के लिए पहले अल्कोहल का पार्ट which is ethyl, फिर एसिड का पार्ट which is propanoate. So it's basically ethyl propanoate. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question number 9. Polymers are made by either addition reaction or condensation reaction. Describe the differences between addition and condensation. Let me write first addition. And then condensation. So takes place in alkene. No loss of mass and non-biodegradable. In condensation, more than one functional group is used. Loss of mass occur. And obviously biodegradable. So from 3 you can write any 2. Okay. PET is a condensation polymer. Name the type of linkage that bonds that represents unit 2. PET is basically polyester. So it contains ester linkage. Okay. A polymer contains 47.1% carbon and 6.5% hydrogen and 46.4% chlorine by mass. So to get the moles, we need to divide them by their relative atomic masses. So I'll divide it by 2, 1, and 35.3. Sorry, 35.5. So I'll get 3.93. I'll get how much? 6.5 and 1.31. So 1.31 is the least value. So in order to get the simplest ratio, I'll divide 1.31 from all the values. Hold on. 3.93 divided by 1.31. So it's going to be exactly 3. Is going to be exactly 6.5 divided by 1.31. It's going to be exactly 5. 4.9 round off over 5. And that's 1. So C3, H5, and Cl is the empirical formula of this polymer. Plastic are made from polymers. Describe 2 environmental challenges caused by plastics. So plastics को use करने के बहुत सारी environmental valuable landfill sites consumes. By plastic dumping. Second, accumulation of plastic in ocean. Okay. That's the end of this paper, guys.